Tell me that's not an amazing reading month. Guys, I love reading. I don't know if I've told you this, but I just had to say it. Hi, hello, welcome back to our usual spot. It is the end of June, and I wasn't supposed to do a reading wrap up, but then I ended the month with two really amazing reads that I thought I'd still do one. The reason why I wasn't sure if I was going to do one was because half of these books I talked about in my best books of the year so far video, so I didn't want it to be repetitive, but I think I have enough already to make it a bit more fun and interesting. And finishing these books kind of also gave me a realization about my reading and some excitement about it for the next few months, which I wanted to share with you guys. So let's do it in order. First, we have Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This book was a surprise to me. I was hearing a lot about this book for the last few months, but I wasn't really sure what it was about. I only knew that it was horror-esque and it was queer. And before this book, I finished Things in Nature Merely Grow, which was a 5-star read for me. So I was really just looking for something to not be on a reading slump, because when I finish 5-star reads, I get so fixated on the 5-star read that I can't really focus on any other book. And I was scared for this book, but I thought it was going to be able to do a good job to just get me by. And then I read the first few pages. I remember I was at a cafe while I was reading it, and I fell in love. I knew right away that it was going to be a minimum 4-star read, but then by the end of it, it was an easy 5-star decision for me. And this is my first fiction 5-star of the year, which looking at it now, I still remember very fondly this book. Monstrilio is about a mother whose son passes away, and she carves out a part of his lung and takes care of it until it takes the shape/form of a human being. And through this book, we get to see their experience of taking care of this lump of lung across 4 different perspectives, from the mom, the dad, a family friend, and then Monstrilio himself, the monster. And it's such a beautiful, interesting depiction of grief, because it doesn't approach grief in the lens of something that's a lot more palatable. It becomes very weird and grotesque and uncategorizable, which is what grief is. People go through grief in many different shapes and forms, and Monstrilio shows you that. And people categorize this as a literary horror novel, which I am a very, very big fan of horror as a genre. It's one of my favorite genres, whether it be books, shows, movies, or even podcasts. Although I would have to admit that I think the movie form is my favorite when it comes to horror. And I think this does fit the horror genre, but I think people just need to know that it's not on the scary lens. It's more on the lens where grief itself presents itself as horror. And this is what the book does brilliantly. The same way, let's say, Hereditary and Bring Her Back are horror movies, which are terrifying. That is grief manifesting in the most extreme ways. And I would like to say this is basically grief also manifesting in a very extreme way, but I don't consider it scary, although I do consider it grotesque. It is a stunning, stunning book that I thoroughly enjoyed. There's just so much beautiful writing here, and the way it approaches queerness is also something that I really loved and enjoyed, because the same way this book is Mexican, this book is also queer, wherein it's not a central focal point to the novel, but it's just a simple way of them existing through the world, which is always a beautiful thing to observe as a queer individual, to get to see stories of queer individuals where it's not something that becomes the main struggle of the book, but it's simply a way of being, a way of existing. And Gerardo Samano Cordova does that brilliantly in this novel. And yeah, easy 5-star for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, we have A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle. This book was also a surprise for me. I discovered this book by accident. It's an interesting story that I like to tell, which is I posted an Instagram reel saying that, why do gay books all have limbs on the covers? And they're all amazing. And someone told me, actually, there's a book titled A Language of Limbs. And obviously, I went straight to the bookstore and I bought it, and I finished it the same weekend. And it's really good. It is a novel where queerness diverges into 2 different paths, where a queer individual can lean into their queerness, where they approach the joys and the sorrows of living their quote-unquote true self with their full freedom, or the other lens, wherein you conform to society's expectations and what people expect out of you. And you see these lives diverge, but also sometimes cross paths, and you see how life as a queer individual can take shape and take form in the joys and the sorrows of those two very different decisions. In the writing of this novel, it doesn't read like a debut novel that much, and it's absolutely, there's a physicality to it. Reading this book, I needed to take breaks because of the way Dylan Hardcastle writes. It is beautiful, it is physical, it's intimate, and there's so much joy in it as well. Because this spans many, many important years in queer history and many important events that have shaped the LGBT community as a whole, but from the perspective specifically of Australia. And you get to see all of those big moments, but also you get to see their small moments in their own lives and how both intersect and what happens. And it's a well-crafted book that I really enjoyed. I think I gave this around 4.75 stars. It's leaning closer to around 4.5, but doesn't take away by how beautiful the importance of community and joy and how we are all there for each other in a world that has long been oppressive for queer individuals. Absolutely stunning. Next, we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is my first V.E. Schwab and my first fantasy book of the year. Fantasy is not really a genre that I gravitate towards naturally. It's a genre that I have to go out of my way to read because I do like to diversify my reading, but I just love my usual genres too much that I sometimes forget to check other genres. But The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I discovered this because, not discovered, but I got reminded of this book because of at Dylan Joseph Writes on Instagram, because he loves V.E. Schwab. He would never shut up about V.E. Schwab. And one thing about me is I love people who are so fixated on what their favorite books are and their favorite authors are, and they never shut up about it because it makes me pick it up. And I picked this up and I enjoyed it. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue mostly as an audiobook while I was running. And maybe I read 80 pages on this physical book just randomly whenever I'm home and I'm like, oh, maybe I could read a couple of pages. And it was fun. It was great. I enjoyed the central plot of this novel, which is about a young lady who makes a deal with the devil because she wants to live a full life. She wants to leave the constraints of what it is to be a woman in 1700s France. But as with all deals with higher beings, there are a lot of conditions. And the key condition here is that she won't be remembered by anyone, and that she also cannot document or journal or be remembered by any form, whether it be by a photo or for her name to be said. Until 300 years later, where a boy remembers her. Of course it's a boy. And we love this boy, Mr. Henry. And this book is basically about those two timelines, about being in 1700s France as well as 2010s New York, about her experience of going through history and then being in present time after everything she's gone through to suddenly have that glimpse of hope is something that V.E. Schwab, I think, executed very beautifully. And the writing was just phenomenal. I was eating it up. I was eating it up, if I were to use a more Gen Z term. There are many elements of the plot that I could be like, not plot holes, but just like, it's fine. I will suspend disbelief, but other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I read The Poppy War last year. I think that was my fantasy read of last year, which was also Thickums, which I just haven't finished that series, although I really loved it. I think I gave that like 4.5 stars. So I'm happy to have my fantasy read of the year already. And I don't know, I'm still thinking if I'll be reading more fantasy this year, but most likely it'll be Miss R.F. Kuang's book, if ever. But yeah, I gave this 3.5 stars. Great fun. Really enjoyed it. Made my runs a lot more interesting. Next, we have A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt. This novel has my heart. This man has my heart. The way he writes is something. I think he's one of my favorite writers of all time in the lens that the way he writes is just made for me. The tenderness it contains, the love and care that he puts into his writing, and the importance of what he's writing about is something that he recognizes, which is why he puts that same level of attention to it. Just really comes off of the page so naturally and so easily. And it makes you want to hug all of the characters in all of these books because they have difficult lives, but they also have very simple lives that they don't dream for much, which is fine. But even that sometimes becomes hard to come by. So Minor Chorus is about a PhD student who drops his dissertation and decides to write a novel. What that novel is, he still doesn't know. And he wanted to go on a journey of getting to know communities and try to figure out what is it the novel that he wants to write about. He wants to take the voice of a community and write through them, not to write about them, not to write for them, but to write through them and to go through the process of getting to know other indigenous Cree individuals, but also queer individuals, and try to understand their voice, their passions, their fears, and to be able to write a story that is worthy of their rich, rich histories and their rich, rich lives that are often not talked about enough or are often overshadowed. And I think not the Billy Ray Belcourt, but also the protagonist in this novel, gives us such a beautiful view of that. And the tenderness, again, just comes off of the page. And it's absolutely stunning. And Billy Ray Belcourt is an author that I will read whatever he puts out. And I know he's going to have a new book soon. I believe it's a poetry collection. And I will be getting that the moment it comes out. 4 books down, 2 books to go. And it's very interesting to me because I remember back in May, up until halfway through, I didn't really have a lot of great reads. It was mostly 3 stars. I think I had a 2.5 star book, which is really the story since back in April and the end of March. And now here we are with an amazing, amazing stack of books. And the thing is, the reason why I made this June reading wrap-up video is we also have 2 more books that I finished reading after filming my best books of the year so far that I absolutely loved. And one of them is a possible all-timer, and one is revisiting an author that I was okay with before, and I realized, wait, why is their writing kind of good? But yes, next we have James Baldwin's Just Above My Head. And guys, this book, I don't even know where to start. This book reminds me of June 2024, when I first finished Septology by Jan Fosse. And I knew right away, there was this strange clarity that I've read something that has changed my life. And I don't say that in a dramatic lens, but something that is just factual. Jan Fosse's Septology is one of my favorite books of all time, and it was such an easy decision that I didn't even have to think twice and think to myself, oh, is it recency bias? Because if I look back at my reading life, there's not a lot of books that I can confidently say immediately after reading it that I will put it in my all-time favorites list. And I do the same for my movies. I try to have some distance from the book before I make such a bold claim, except for very specific instances where you just know. And that clarity is exhilarating. That clarity feels so special. And I felt that with Septology by Jan Fosse. I felt that with Just Above My Head by James Baldwin. And I felt that only for three other times in my reading life, which is with On Earth Briefly Gorgeous, A Little Life, and Norwegian Wood. So I think we have a total of 5 books. And then just to quickly share, I also have movies that I knew right away would be all-time favorites of mine, which are Yi Yi, A Brighter Summer Day, both by Edward Yang, Perfect Days, An Elephant Sitting Still, and every single one of Cordeado's movies. But generally, aside from those, I try to have space from the movie or the book, just so I don't get too caught up with the emotional high after reading a book. But all that is to say, Just Above My Head gave me the same clarity. I don't need to think twice about it. I know it's going to be one of my favorite books of all time. Because this book felt like James Baldwin coming home. I have read Giovanni's Room, The Fire Next Time, and Another Country. The last one I need to reread because it's been a very long time since I read it. And I think I was too young when I read it because I don't really remember much about it. And I don't think I rated it that highly, maybe 3.5 stars. But this felt like James Baldwin coming home in a way that all of his key ideologies, inner turmoils, themes, and topics are present here. And they feel like they're coming alive. His relationship with the church, Harlem, gospel singing, queerness, being black in the US, they're all present here, and they're all just like flying off the page, and you can feel the passion that is burning in James Baldwin as he writes his final novel. And it just works. It absolutely just works because this novel is filled with so much love and rage and difficulties and joy. And this 600 pages just flew by for me, and that's not usually the case when I read books of such an undertaking, you know? Because this book is about Hall, a heterosexual black man who is dealing with the loss of his brother, a gay gospel singer named Arthur. And the book itself is basically, let me just put it down. This book is basically going through the 40 years of their lives, of growing up since they were kids. We go back in time to when they first met the other people who become very, very important in this novel. And my heart goes out to each and every one of them because James Baldwin just made me really connect with them. I think reading this book made me feel like I was with them during that time in, I believe, 1940s to 1970s US. And you get to see everything that they've gone through the different big moments in American history, especially for black people, that as someone from Southeast Asia, these are things that I knew about, but I did not really know in depth, such as the Great Migration, and just being able to, a book to excite me so much that I was really doing my research extensively to understand what was happening. Why are they so scared of going to the South? Why are some cities more easy for them to be? What is the role of Paris here? Why does James Baldwin, again, Paris is also ever present in James Baldwin's novels. You get that macro element. You get to see the larger context of being black and especially being queer as well, side by side in the US. And then you also have the intimacy of their own stories, their own difficulties, the small problems that they go through, but also the way those macro things impact their personal lives is beautiful. The universality and the intimacy going side by side is something that is just breathtaking. And the way James Baldwin handles it is absolutely stunning because James Baldwin is an author that does not shy away from the politics that surround his writing and those surround his existence because, and I hate this, when I was reading reviews after reading this book on what are people's qualms about this book, they were saying it's uneven and just like, oh, the politics was so in your face, and I disagree. I think James Baldwin made it flow so beautifully, and if people expect James Baldwin to be removable from his politics, I think you're reading the wrong author because James Baldwin cannot be separated from that because it's so crucial to what he writes about and who he is as a person and what he's fought for across the years. And you can see that really coming to life here, that as he tells the stories of these very, 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 very beautiful people and the stories of their lives, you also know that the stories of their lives are shaped by their surroundings, about being black, about being queer, about being women, and it's just written as it's like an epic at this point, that you go through these many decades of these characters and you go through their life with them, and by the end of it I was just choking up in bed at 12:40 a.m. when I was finishing this, and I was like, I didn't want to leave. And it's crazy because I saw someone say that they think the book could have been shorter, and I was like, what? The book could have been shorter? What are you saying? I think the book could have been longer. But yes, this made me excited to read the rest of, reread the James Baldwin books that I've read, and also the James Baldwin books that I still haven't read. I think Go Tell It to the Mountain is the big one that I still haven't finished. I still haven't gotten a copy of. But yes. And to just end on a nice note for James Baldwin, just above my head, I really think some of the best books of all time that I have read, the ones that I consider my all-time favorites, have changed me in some way. And I don't say that dramatically. Same thing that I was saying about Jan Fosse earlier. They always reflect something about my own ideologies and what I believe in, and give me the words for it, or they give me an unlock in my brain. And I believe Just Above My Head has given me that, although I still don't have the words for it. But at least on the reading lens, just above my head, I already know that it did something special for my reading life, because for some reason, epics like this, well, I don't know if it's technically called besides the point, because books of this length and just this undertaking of different generations, not generations, but different time periods across many years, different cast of characters, is something that I usually need to mentally prepare for, because it feels like an undertaking. But just above my head, I just devoured. I finished this, I think, in around 8 days. Every single day, every time I put down this book, I'm just like, I want to read more. I want to read more. I want to be with them. I want to see where their stories go. I want to hear about their loves. I want to be with them for their losses. And it made me excited for many, many other books that have been daunting to me, have been intimidating for many years. And suddenly now I'm excited. Now I just want to pick up every single book that I can find. And I feel like I can read anything at this point. If you give me Nietzsche, I feel like I could finish in 2 days. But jokes aside, it made me excited to read. It made me excited to read, which I'll talk about more once I finish this whole reading wrap up. But I wanted to give that specific credit to James Baldwin's Just Above My Head. And last but not least, it is currently July 1 as I am filming this. It is 7:30 a.m. or 7 a.m. Yes, it is very early. And I'm trying to finish this before work and do some editing and maybe finish the editing during my work lunch and then post it tonight. The reason I'm saying that is I finished this Chess Story by Stefan Zweig last night, June 30, while having a headache. It was a tough work day for me yesterday. It was a Monday, and I had a 4-hour call, 4 1-hour calls, but it was just so mentally draining that by the end of it, I had a bit of a migraine. And then I had dinner, and I was like, I just want to read, even though I had a headache. And I went to a cafe, picked this book up, Chess Story, and tell me why it cured it. Because Stefan Zweig, I have read his book a couple of years back. I know it was in 2019, before the pandemic, and I forgot what the title is. It's not The Post Office Girl. It's not. I think it's Journey to the Past. Journey to the Past. And it was okay. I remember liking it enough. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, but it didn't blow me away. But this one kind of just, damn, sir, I didn't know you write like that. Because this book was gripping. Chess Story is about a world-renowned chess player who grew up not really being skilled in anything else except for chess. Like the first time he played chess, he could suddenly beat everyone in the world. And this man, while on board a boat, encounters a lawyer who has a more fascinating story, who is suddenly someone who can challenge him. And this novella is basically a book that shows you their stories of how they come about and how they ended up at that time and place. And it is so gripping. Oh my gosh, I didn't know chess could be so intense. And I guess in theory, I knew that. I mean, I've watched Queen's Gambit. But this was just so exhilarating. I feel like sometimes I'm just like, Stefan Zweig, let me breathe for a moment there. Don't move your pawn yet. I'm still taking my time to breathe. But it's so gripping. It's so thrilling. I'm usually not a novella person, but I guess not usually is not the word, but it's more of novellas are hit or miss for me. One great example would be Small Boat by Vincent Delacroix, which everyone loves. Everyone loves, and I know I'm of the unpopular opinion side here, but it was of an important topic that I think could have been executed better or could have been served better by a bit of a longer book. And I just think that a novella is really, really, really hard to crack. And massive respect to authors who are able to do it successfully. And I think this is one example of a novella that I'm obsessed with. It's so good. I still don't know what my rating for it is because I just finished it last night and I don't want to fall into the trap of recency bias. I think currently it's around 4.75, but my God, I could read and reread this because it's so exciting. It's short, but it packs a punch, and what else can I ask for? And it makes me want to read the rest of Stefan Zweig's books. There's a specific book by Stefan that I've been wanting to read, I think, for the last 3 years. I think it's Beware of Pity, but I want the NYRB edition, which, sue me, I want the nice cover. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find it, but I'm going to be traveling soon, so hopefully I can find one, because I've been wanting to read it. But yes, that is Chess Story 4.75, and tell me that's not an amazing reading month. And as I was saying earlier, the reason why I decided to do this June reading wrap-up video is it made me realize I love reading. Guys, I love reading. Jokes aside, I messaged my broadcast channel on Instagram yesterday, and I just said, guys, I love reading. I don't know if I've told you this, but I just had to say it. And it's funny because it's a joke, but it's also true. Because I've always loved reading. I mean, reading has always come naturally to me. It's something that I make time for because I know it's good for me. I know I will enjoy the process. I know I'll come out of it more fulfilled. But it has become second nature to me. I mean, I love it. It's just, I don't have to do anything. I will just read. But I think in the last month and a half, since May, when I read Henry Rejection, Things in Nature Merely Grow, and then Monstrilio, Language of Limbs, all of these books, suddenly I'm like, the possibilities of literature and being able to learn about so many things that I don't get to experience directly firsthand just feels so special, you know? Being able to be changed by literature, if I were to be so dramatic, is something that there are reading months that don't really give me that. There are reading months that I'm just like, okay, great book. I learned something or I enjoyed the book, but there are months where I learned something and I enjoyed the book, and it just feels amazing. It just made me excited because I think specifically since James Baldwin's book, I suddenly got so excited to read books that I have been putting off for many years, such as Mishima's Sea of Fertility tetralogy, revisiting Nabokov, finishing In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. That's one of my dreams in life. I absolutely love Swan's Way. And then Miranda July, seeing what the fuss is about her because I know she has weird, disgusting books, and I love weird and disgusting books. And it just made me excited. I feel like I can read anything right now after reading all of these books because they just get me so excited with literature and the possibilities. And the best part is I also got book mail from NYRB, one of my favorite publishers. They sent me, I think, 6 books. And then I also went on a little haul at the thrift store. It's my birthday on July 6th, and I wanted to just buy myself a couple of books. I bought 4 books there. My friend went to Malaysia and bought me 1 other book. And then I am receiving 4 books from my friend from Norway this Saturday. So I think I will do my book haul book mail after all of that. And I'll just share to you guys how excited I am. Because so many of these books I have been on my TBR for a very long time. And suddenly I have them. And most of them actually intimidate me. But after my recent reading month, I'm suddenly, you know what? I'm gonna give everything a try. Yes, a bit of an impromptu June reading wrap up, and let me know what your new favorites are this June. Did you have a good reading month, or did we have a not so nice reading month? And give me recommendations because obviously with my big TBR, I still need more. But I'm excited, and if you've read any of these, please let me know. I want to hear your thoughts about these books, and if you stuck around until the very end, I'll see you back at our usual spot.